Good evening, my fellow YouTubers. So you got J Crew to you coming at you with a video here in our young new year, January 2nd, 2023. I want to do a brief video about another YouTuber that I kind of used to follow, but I kind of fell off of his wagon, so to speak, a little bit. I was sort of dip into his YouTube page every now and again and check out his stuff. And his name is Sinful the P, and the P stands for pimp, for what I understood. Sinful the P had been on YouTube for many years, and so I kind of remember his video from like several years ago, and he was a very interesting character to me. And number one is if so I know some of you are like, who is this guy? Who is this? We all have our picks in terms of people that we follow on this here platform. And Sinful the P was one of those guys I chose to follow many years ago. And what was strange about Sinful the P was that he talked about the lifestyle of pimps out there basically being over their women in the streets. And he almost sort of like would sort of check people who he thought was doing it right or not doing it right. And so he was an interesting guy, and that's mainly what he covered on his channel was the lifestyle of pimps, pimping women. And the women being out there doing what they need to do to get the money for the pimp. But as time went on, Sinful not only commented on what he thought was good pimping and bad pimping, he kind of talked about his own life a little bit. And he would, you would see paperwork to back that up, not only from him, but from other YouTubers who either liked him or did not like him. He himself, from what I understand, was from Chicago, Illinois, on the South Side. And he actually was a youth pastor, in his younger years. I mean, he was on, I want to say, when I say younger years, I would say probably like in his early teens. I think he was, I don't know the church that he was pastoring at, but apparently he began to pastor at a church. And he would talk about his experiences doing that, and that even made his life in terms of where it went seem that even more crazy, in that he ended up partaking and also talking about the lifestyle of pimping and prostituting women. Sinful basically was in the lifestyle of being in the church, being a youth pastor, preaching sermons. And he eventually got to the point where I think he was trying to embark on a singing career, because I guess he wanted to be like a Christian singer. But he got hooked up with some guy who was from New Orleans. I can't remember the guy's name, and this guy was actually, I think, involved like in the streets and stuff like that, who maybe was pimping women himself. And I can't remember what the guy's name is. Some of y'all, if y'all see this video, you might want to post a comment in the video about who this other guy was he met. But I know he did like a multi-part series of videos on this. But when he met this guy, Sinful actually began to partake in the lifestyle of the streets by actually becoming a pimp himself. He pimped women, and he basically just kind of stuck with that, and in one form or another, up until this past week. And I'll get to what happened this past week with him shortly. Uh, Eventually, Sample began to make his way, I think, out to Las Vegas, and he was, pimping women out there, and probably as well as other places around the country. What happened is that, and this is, I'm just taking Sample's story. And from what I remember, I was going off the top of my head, so I may miss details. He eventually got to the point where uh, he had met this young lady who had lied about her age. And I want to say she claimed that she was 18 or 19 when she met him, but she was really like underage, like maybe 12 or 13. And and what happened was that when Sinful met her, uh, and I think he might have disputed this or something, but this is my understanding was that he eventually began to get, engaged in a relationship with her, thinking that she was of age, but of course she wasn't. I think the young lady got pregnant and had a baby girl, and he was hit, with a pimping, with a pandering charge, and he eventually went to prison for like I don't know if it was 2 to 3 years he was in prison or something out there. He was a prison out there in Las Vegas. I think in what high desert prison or whatever they call it. He eventually did his time, got out, and he eventually I think kind of got back into pimping a little bit, but he made his way on the YouTube, and that's why I kind of became knowledgeable of him. If you follow Sinful, he even though he talked about pimping, which to me is somewhat evil, because you're taking advantage of women who probably just need guidance of some kind, and you're just trying to get something out of it for yourself. Sinful was he kind of would weave religion into it somehow. He would talk about different scriptures and verses, and he would sort of preach the gospel and sort of would mesh it in with the streets. And if you listen to this guy, you would say to yourself, "Man, that dude sound better than most preachers I've ever heard." Who are who just minister to adult crowds. I mean, he had a sort of a way with words, and it made him, in a very very, you know, listenable speaker, or should I say, it made him to be a guy who just kind of was interesting to listen to. I mean, he could hold your attention, which he did often for me for hours on end. Because some of his YouTube lives were going for 3, 4 hours, and he really held my attention. I mean, he was really a heck of a speaker, and he was more interesting, like I said, than most seasoned pastors I've ever listened to. And but again, because of his chosen lifestyle of pimping, a lot of people detested him. They didn't really like him. Some people try to get at him about getting the underage girl pregnant, apparently. And again, I say apparently because I think he might have disputed that at times, but I think that's pretty much what happened. Was that he got this underage girl pregnant, and he had a daughter by her. And but either way, uh, over the years, if somebody's like doing as many videos as Sinful did on YouTube, he was on there as long as he was. You're not gonna catch every single one. You may kind of drift away from these people at some point in time, and I think that's what happened with me. I just kind of drifted away from him, and then I would drift back. When some people would die, like entertainers would die here and there, he would do videos on them, and he was it sounded like he would be preaching, like preaching a sermon when he would be just talking about them. And it would just be incredible to listen to, man. And like I said, he was a really good speaker. But again, because of his chosen lifestyle, a lot of people did not like him. And, they kind of didn't pay attention to him. But I thought he was a very interesting person. And like I said, I think if you listen to him on a few of his videos, you will see what I'm talking about. He's a very good speaker. And it was a shame that he chose that lifestyle, in my personal opinion. He's like one of these guys. He could have been maybe like a mega pastor or something. He would have kept doing what he was doing because he was just that good of a speaker. He was gifted oratorically, meaning with his speech, he was just very good. Like they're just very gifted speaker. And but unfortunately, I got the news this past week from one of his, I can say his pimp friends, another guy that's been on YouTube for a while by the name Freeze is it. A dude from California, but I think he may pimp out there in Vegas and all over the West Coast out there, called Freeze is it. And he, along with another guy that you may have heard of, if you ever follow like pimping in popular culture by the name of Gorgeous Dre. Gorgeous Dre was on a documentary in the late 90s called American Pimp. And he was a bit heavier back then, was Gorgeous Dre. But now I think he's lost a lot of weight. And I think, he looks different than from how I remember him. but I still remember the name, and somewhat I remember his face. I think Gorgeous Dre is on YouTube. I really don't follow him like that. But they informed people who follow Sinful that Sinful had passed away apparently. Because if you had followed Sinful for the past 3 or 4 years, he had moved to Canada. I don't know exactly why. Some people say he was on the run from some pimping charges or something like that. And so I'm not totally sure. So I'm just speculating. I heard other people say that, but apparently he passed away uh, of some unspecified reason. They did emphasize he was not murdered or anything, but I don't know if he had any sort of health problems. But apparently something happened because Simple, even though he was still on YouTube, he really hadn't shown his face over the past 3 years, since he been in Canada. So some people speculate he might have been going through a unspecified illness that he didn't want people to know about. But it may not have not been that. Again, he may have been on the run, didn't want people to see his face. you know. But apparently, again, he passed away. And I just want to say, man, I'm sorry to hear that about Sinful the P. Some people might not like me saying that, but because of his lifestyle, they may look to him as an evil guy. But I thought he was a very entertaining person and a very good speaker. It's just that he was a street dude, and I think some people didn't want him to be taken as seriously like that. Some people didn't think he deserved to be listened to. But sometimes, man, some people for people who participate in a certain lifestyle, it might be evil to you and me and be unusual, but it makes them like really interesting and entertaining to listen to it. And Simple just had the gift of the gab to me. He would do roast video, like if some people kind of came at him and tried to criticize him or pick at him, he would roast you right back, like if he had the time or he sat down and he had the time to. And he was funny. He was a funny guy. I said very articulate sounding, but very funny at the same time. You know, I think what was interesting is that I remember Simple saying when he was younger, some people thought he had like a learning disability or something, that he was slow. but you know, I think he himself began to learn as he got older. Uh, that he actually was gifted in a few areas, and he discovered he was a good speaker. But either way, I would like to say, man, rest in peace, man. Sinful the P. You was an entertaining dude, man, for real. And as you see, I got pictures of him up, various pictures of him. He was known to be a very very good dresser, given the lifestyle he was involved in, and so he presented himself like he was like a well known guy out there in the lifestyle of pimping. I think he was only 38 years old. That was another thing with him. He was a young guy. He this wasn't no 50 or 60-year old dude. He was in his late 30s. And so like I said again, just rest in peace, Sam for the P. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Y'all have a good one.